Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sometimes I hear some other people chanting, other devotees chanting, and I don't know what they're chanting. It doesn't even sound like the Hare Krishna Mantra. Hare Krishna, the mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Like, hear every word, every syllable. Oh, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the mind is racing, What about this? And what about that? The other thing. And the chanting is Krishna Krishna Ram 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 Krishna Krishna Ram Ram Ram. And if you have a conversation with that person, it's all over the place. And there's very little opportunity, really, to actually connect with Krishna. This all comes from the chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna is incarnated in sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was having a conversation with a devotee the other day, and they were all worked up about the way the world is and all the terrible things that are going on. And Hare Krishna, it's the material world. It's conducted by the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So they were going on and on about how they're going to prepare for all these terrible disasters. And so I just looked at them like, really, I listened to it for quite a while. I just looked at them and I said, so where's Krishna? And they said they didn't know. They were honest. I said, I don't know. So I said, he's in his name. He's incarnated in his name. Just like the deity in the temple, certainly most devotees will accept that the deities in the temple are an incarnation of Krishna, the Archa Vigraha form. Krishna has kindly appeared in wood or stone or metal or even a picture, some form that we can, with our material senses, connect with. We can serve, bow down before, see, touch, smell incense and flowers offered to the deity. So certainly the devotees accept that Krishna is incarnated in the deity, in the temple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But the worship for this age is not temple worship. The worship for this age is not deity worship. Because what is being engaged in now is a very abbreviated form, and it's to help the devotees reach Krishna consciousness. The actual worship for the age is chanting of the holy name, because Krishna is incarnated in sound. So they work together. It goes together. The deities in the temple, Hare Krishna. That is Krishna there. But that's to help bring us to Krishna. The actual devotional service is the chanting of the holy names. the Sankirtan movement, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if you look, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his pastimes, they weren't like so much in the temple. When he'd go to the temple, he'd pass out sometimes. Because it's explained that he's non-different from the deity in the temple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's appearing as a devotee who always has the holy names, always vibrating the holy names. He explains he's completely saturated the holy names with all his, everything's there in the holy name. Namaha mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we don't want to leave out any syllables. We want to focus when we're chanting on actually the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Another devotee recently was getting all excited that Krishna's coming. They feel they're getting closer to Krishna. More things are happening on the planet. Krishna's coming. So actually Krishna's already here. Krishna's already here. He's here. He's here in the holy name. He's here. He's already here. And what we're doing is we're learning to surrender to Krishna. Everything's meant to develop Krishna consciousness. Surrender to Krishna. Serve Krishna. Remember Krishna. Worship Krishna. And he's incarnated in his holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. If you get even just a little taste of that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'm going to read a little bit from Bhagavad Gita again, because I want to look at more closely the three modes of material nature. And what I'm getting is that pure devotional service, that's the goal, pure devotional service to Krishna, is what that means by pure is that not influenced by the material energy. And what is the material energy? Is it earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence? Well, yes, but those things, those energies, they have no activity. They're like basic elements. Like if a child is given a box full of Legos and he doesn't open the box and they're just sitting there like on the floor, they don't do anything. But when he becomes active with them, then he becomes entangled in them and he's preoccupied with the Legos, the basic elements. And that preoccupation has three basic modalities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, influenced by the mode of passion, the child may build some big thing. Look what I built! Look! It's influenced by the mode of passion. And then he might leave it there for a little while. He doesn't want to disturb it because he's relishing it's there, and It's there, so it's just sort of maintaining. But then, like, he gets a little bored and he just smashes it all down so that he can build something else. So 3 modalities: goodness, things are maintained; passion, very creative, create something; and ignorance, just destroy it, start all over again. But the basic elements, they don't have, they're just sitting there. Earth, water, air. It's not the earth is disturbing us or the water is disturbing us, or they're just sitting there, they're basic elements. But under the influence of these modes, then that's when things start to happen. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. So pure devotional service, I was thinking about this the last few days, means not influenced by goodness, passion, and ignorance. It's not that pure devotional service isn't influenced by earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence. That's the problem. No. They're just sitting there. They're not the problem. The problem is becoming entangled in them and becoming subjected to a modality, entangled in the mode of goodness, entangled in the mode of passion, entangled in the mode of ignorance. And why is that a problem? Because there's no room for Krishna. That's the contamination, is becoming active on the material plane with the material elements under the modes of material nature. So in devotional service, there's still a little remnant of that left, being influenced by the modes. Devotional service in the mode of passion. Devotional service in the mode of goodness. Devotional service in the mode of ignorance. It's still influenced. That's the impurity, is being influenced by the modes of material nature in trying to perform devotional service. So there's scope for it, there's room for it. There's Jnana Yoga, there's Karma Yoga, there's Jnana Yoga. They're all heading in the direction of Krishna. But then there's Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti, devotion, emotions, and taste for chanting. That's prime benediction for humanity at large, the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Devotional service, the actual platform of actual devotional service, or pure devotional service, is not influenced by the modes. It's not influenced by the modes of material nature. And that's where we want to go. We want to go there. But we're still very much influenced by the modes. On the platform of pure devotional service, there's no room for anything material. The devotee is completely absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, devotion to Krishna, hearing about Krishna, remembering Krishna. Sometimes people take some of these drugs. A real popular one was and is gaining more and more popularity is the marijuana. And I'll be honest, I experimented with it when I was younger. We're done with that. I'm too high now on Krishna. But one thing that happens is the mind relaxes and the senses and everything. And one thing reminds the person of another thing, and it takes them to another thing, and it's kind of pleasurable when the mind just sort of floats and looks at things, and they're sitting there high on some drug, stimulant, and their mind is going one place and another place, and it's just wandering. And it's like a show. Well, being high on Krishna is a lot like that. Only the mind goes from one thing Krishna to another thing Krishna to another thing Krishna. And in association of other devotees, we associate with this devotee and that devotee and the other devotee, and this kirtan, that kirtan. You read this scripture, that scripture. And it's always engaged in Krishna. So, conversing with devotees who have that taste for getting high on Krishna, that's one way. It's the mind. It's so much fun because the conversation, one thing reminds them of another in Krishna, and they share their realizations, their experiences, how they're remembering Krishna. There's that verse in the Gita, Tushanti cha ramanti cha, conversing about me, enlivening one another about me. That's on the level of pure devotional service. Other levels have to do with, we have to do this, we have to do that, on the moving things around level, which is, it's all part of things. But on the actual platform of Krishna Consciousness, most relishable platform, as we see in Chaitanya Leela, there wasn't really any of that going on. It was all kirtan and hearing verses and remembering Krishna and becoming more and more ecstatic, and really not even engaging in like temple service. Because the deity, Lord Chaitanya, was non-different from the deity. He said that he's the moving deity. Jagannath was the fixed deity, and Lord Chaitanya was the moving deity. It's described like that. He's non-different. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So I'm just looking at some of those things, and how the modes of material nature influence our devotional activities. Now, then there's the system of Varnashram Dharma, which is described how it's connected to the modes. The Brahmins are in, their activities are in the mode of goodness. Now, this isn't even necessarily people who are trying to develop Krishna consciousness. These are just natural divisions of civilized human society. And the Brahmins are the intellectual and priestly class, the mode of goodness, and the Kshatriyas are the protectors to keep things orderly, attackers, they protect the culture from attacks, and they quelch disturbances within the community, the culture. And then there's the Vaishyas. So they're the Kshatriyas in the mode of passion. And then the Vaishyas, the business people, trade, agriculture, cow protection, like that, they're in the mixed modes of goodness, of passion and ignorance. And then the laborer class, they're more or less in the mode of ignorance. They don't have much access to knowledge. They're using their hands and their feet to serve everyone, and it's all part of things. I think it's what makes a culture sustainable. But beyond that is the transcendence. There's Krishna consciousness. So when a culture is organized and the modes of material nature are according to one's propensities, they're engaged in service, but they're also Krishna conscious, then that's different. It's not just a material classification, because Krishna is there. And everything is going toward Krishna. In the Vaishnava, they can be found in any rung or strata of the social order. And they may be doing so many activities, but they're not influenced by the modes of material nature. Their activities are in Krishna consciousness. Good. The perfect example is Raj Leela. It's not that they weren't doing anything. They're just sitting, they were active. They had in the village. They were doing agriculture and protecting cows and raising families and trading their surplus goods with others. So it was a very opulent place. They had nice cloth. They weren't cloth makers. They were trading there. And they had precious metals and gems and wearing nice jewelry. And so they were trading. So they were engaged somewhat in that also. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. They were absorbed in Krishna. They weren't influenced by the modes of material nature, although they were acting within the culture.
Pendant number 1 is not in communication.
Krishna, I have to do something about this. I don't know what to do about it. I have to. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna. It's a monitoring system. Make sure everything's okay. Hare Krishna, Hare pain. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Something else I was looking at was staying in the present moment. The chanting, because Krishna is in his holy name, when we're chanting and relishing Krishna in the present moment, then we're in the present moment with Krishna. The mind tends to want to go to the past, and it can get stuck there with, this horrible thing happened to me, and that horrible thing happened to me, and I was a victim here, and that one did this, and oh, if only I'd done that. The mind tends to do that. And then we carry that. That's what we're doing in the present moment, is experiencing frustration, anger, fear, like this, in the present moment for things that happened in the past. And that robs us of being with Krishna in the present moment. It's one of Maya's tricks. And the other thing that the mind will do is go into the present. And then what's in the present? The unknown, fear, how will I deal with this? What if this happens? All that, and oh this, and oh that, and then we bring that into the present moment. Where's Krishna? The mind's busy trying to. Like, I could get some relief from that horrible thing that so-and-so did to me if I could just get a hold of them and, or I could get even with them somehow, then I could get relief. No, it doesn't work like that. That's why when people actually kill someone, they're thinking like that. They stole my wife. He stole my wife. I'm just going to go kill him. And it feels good for like a half a second, shooting the guy. And then he's in jail for the rest of his life. But he got even. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Or being fearful of what might happen in the future, that this terrible thing's coming and it's going to happen. I'm just going to sell everything and go off into the woods. And then the horrible Y2K was like that. A lot of people fell into that trap around the turn of the century. Y2K. All the computers were going to collapse because the calendar's not changing properly in the software programming. The whole financial structure, the whole world's going to collapse. The lights are going to go out because when it gets to be midnight, 1999, December 31st, midnight, and it changes over to 2000, the software programs that are running the banks, the government, whatever, they're not going to change over to a 4-digit format because they've been running on a 2-digit format. They've been running on like the year 98, the year 99. But now it's going to 2000. It needs to be a 4-digit format. And it's not going to change over. People don't forget these panics, these frenzies. And they come all the time. Another one was 2012. The Mayan calendar stops in the year 2012. So what? Krishna. These kinds of panics come and go. Actually, I haven't seen them in a while, but really dear friends in the Seventh-day Adventist community, and I had a really great time with them when I was there, like in the mid-90s. Really, really sweet, very nice people. I had a really good time with them. I would go to their house, they would come to mine, and very, very nice people. They took books about Krishna. But I was learning a little bit about how their culture developed out of the teachings of Jesus. I think her name's Ann White, Helen White, Ann White. Around the 1850s, there was a big scare amongst many Christians about that Jesus, it was not a scare, it was a great anticipation, which turned into the great disappointment. Some of the scholars had used the Bible for prophecy, and it came to the year 1850. They look at time cycles and they do different things with the scriptures, their scriptures. And the year, I think it was 1850, right around there, 1845, somewhere around there, Jesus was returning. He was going to come again. So they wanted to be ready. And it was a huge frenzy. It was worldwide amongst many Christians who accepted that the prophecy was valid. And when the time came around and he didn't come, as they expected him to, many people lost their faith altogether. And it was called the Great Disappointment. But out of that, there was one woman, Ann White, I think. The way she saw it was that he wanted to come, but we weren't ready. We're not practicing nicely, so he couldn't come. So we have to take practice more seriously. In other words, she accepted that he's not bound, that he's independent, he can do whatever he wants. And she looked around her and she saw that they really weren't practicing very nicely in a regulated way. So she took that as her preaching platform. That if we want him to come, we have to practice nicely, the way he's describing to practice. And so they came up more into the mode of goodness and stopped eating meat, fish, and eggs. And we're very careful about how they relate among each other, nice families, keeping things simple, dressing very simply, studying the scriptures, singing and dancing, and trying to actually purify their existence and helping others. They took natural healing and medicines as a service to God. It's all mode of goodness stuff. And like that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. So these big things where everybody's expecting something, they come and then they go. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Not to get swept up in them, to get all swept up. It's the influence of the modes of material nature. Hearing, chanting, remembering. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare. Staying absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Not getting pulled away by all the fear of the future and anger and frustration of the past. And also to not be I'm not an angel. I've inconvenienced others. I've done stupid things in the past. I have to admit, I've been a bit of an ogre myself, stumbling around in the darkness. Not to hold those things either. Hare Krishna, Hare, they're gone. If you're in the present moment with Krishna, all that's gone. It's all gone. There's no fear because you're eternally in the present moment with Krishna. And Krishna's made it so simple. He's in his holy name. We can remain conscious of Krishna, in a relationship with Krishna, hearing, chanting, talking about Krishna, relishing Krishna, learning how to associate with others, however they're situated, if they're still being pulled by the different modes, or if we're fortunate, some association with devotees who are also relishing being in the present moment with Krishna. Yeah, it's like Arjuna on the chariot, Krishna was his chariot driver. He was maneuvering through this huge obstacle course, all sorts of inimical forces there, dangerous situations, and Krishna's maneuvering the chariot. He's driving the chariot for Arjuna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So Krishna makes the arrangements. He brings us into association that will help us, if that's what we want. If we want to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, He'll bring us into association with devotees who also want to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. If we're stuck in a certain mode and we don't have a taste so much for hearing and chanting, and when we're chanting it's Sri Krishna Krishna Slam Slam Slam, then we'll have association with those that we can relate to who are also struggling at that level. And Krishna's making all the arrangements. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. What is it? Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, he's made a house the whole world can live in. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Just get in the house. Or what is it? There's a big ship and it's traveling a very dangerous ocean. So some passengers there in the first class cabin, they paid a high price. They're in the first class cabin. And somebody has snuck in and is a stowaway in the baggage compartment. Hare Krishna. Everybody's on the ship. Everybody's in the house. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Why? Because Krishna's here. He's here. He's here in the holy name. He's here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he reads the modes of material nature. Bhagavad Gita. As it is. Ta-da! Krishna Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda. Modes of material nature. I'd read up to text 17, so I'll just continue with there. Oma Gana. Timirandasya Gana. Salakaya Chakshun Militam. Yena Tasmai Shri. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Hare Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Actually, spiritual master is Krishna. And Krishna can act through others. So there's one spiritual master, the initiating guru, and then there are shikshas. Shiksha, spiritual master. The shiksha gives instructions. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Text 17. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, grief develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develop. Since the Prabhupada's purport, since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness, which, from the verse we learn, real knowledge is available in the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that by killing one animal, they are taking a chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life. Because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the motive goodness of the people in general must be there. When they are actually educated in the motive goodness, they will become sober, in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the motive goodness, then there is the possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. Why? Because the mode of ignorance, they cannot see things as they are, and they do things that are irresponsible, and they cause reactions. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangement for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. So no matter how much somebody has, it's not enough. They have to get more because they're in that mode of more, louder, bigger, faster, stronger, spicier, sexier this way, sexier that way, more. But they can never be satisfied. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. The mode of goodness is what? Real knowledge. One engaged in the mode of passion is not only mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad. Being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. And the mode of ignorance means taking birth. But they're already animal-like existence, and when the body is through, they can glide down. It's not that always going higher. The mode of ignorance can go down, take an animal body. Oh, what's the harm there? Looks like fun to be a dog. I'd always wanted to learn how to fly. I could be a bird. I don't mind. What's the difficulty? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna. Hare Krishna. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Prabhupada's purport. In this verse, the results of action in the three modes of nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of heavenly planets, where everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet is Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka, but the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The mode of passion is mixed. It is in the middle, between the modes of goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of goodness, of passion, he will simply remain on this earth as a king or a rich man. Okay, the mode of passion is mixed. It's in the middle. between the modes of goodness and ignorance. So the mode of passion is mixed. A person is not always pure. But even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he will simply remain on this earth as a king or a rich man. But because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth in the modes of passion or ignorance cannot forcibly approach the higher planets by machine. In the mode of passion, there is also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It's the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level, there are 8 million species of life: birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of goodness, people are brought down to those abominable conditions. Did I say goodness? I don't know. Ignorance. The 8 million species, birds, beasts. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamasa is very significant here. Tamasa indicates those who stay continually in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. There is opportunity for men in the mode of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness, and that system is called Krishna Consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity certainly will continue in the lower modes. And the mode of goodness is characterized by what? Knowledge. To see things as they are. The mode of passion is characterized by what? Greediness and insatiable desires. And the mode of ignorance is characterized by what? The animal life, living like an animal. In another verse, it was described that they can't see things as they are because there's no knowledge. So they make mistakes. Whereas the mode of passion is mixed. It has some knowledge and it has some ignorance. It's mixed. But in ignorance there's no knowledge, like an animal. But by getting the mercy of Krishna, through the devotees and through Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, and through hearing the Maha Mantra, taking prasadam, somehow or other coming in contact with Krishna, then they can be actually elevated to the mode of goodness. And from the mode of goodness, Krishna Consciousness, that's the best mode to be in because it's knowledge. And what is Krishna's body made of? Sat, Chit, Ananda Vigraha. Eternity, knowledge, bliss. He has form. Form up. That's his form. He is knowledge. He says, I am knowledge. I am remembrance. And I am forgetfulness. I am knowledge. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. 19. When you see that there is nothing, this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna, when you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities in the material world, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. Prabhupada's purport. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by by learning from the proper souls. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting this spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn the science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the material modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grips of these modes. But when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he is situated in a particular type of body, conducted by some particular modes of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna, is relieved from the activities of material nature. Therefore, for one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. Text 20. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes, he becomes free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Krishna. In the beginning of the chapter, Prabhupada explains that the knowledge in this chapter, it's chapter 14, is far superior to the knowledge heard in the other chapters preceding it. Even knowledge of the absolute, most confidential knowledge, karma yoga in action, it's all far superior. And what he's saying here is that by understanding, having knowledge of the three modes of material nature, become free from them, their influence, because you can recognize them. Identifying something, like with a disease. If you can, you're sick, you don't know why you're sick, but you're really, really sick. And in order to treat the sickness, it has to be understood what it is. Then you can take the proper steps, the proper diet, how to deal with it. Herbs, different types of treatments. So this is being able to diagnose the influences that are acting on the person. They're able to understand how they're being forced to act by a certain mode. Because ultimately the living entity is spiritual. They really have nothing to do with the material elements or the modes of material nature, ultimately. but they're in a situation where they're identifying with material activities under the three modes: goodness, passion, or ignorance. So when they understand how this is working, they become free from the distresses of the modes. Because along with identifying with the material atmosphere and acting in it, there's birth, death, old age, and disease. Over and over again. So become free, able to transcend the modes. You can actually enjoy transcendental bliss, even in this life. Prabhupada's purport: how one can stay in a transcendental position, even in this body, is full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of material nature. So in the body, acting, but not identifying, detached, free, in Krishna consciousness. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from this material entanglement, and this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. That's actually the platform of bhakti. Free from the jnana, free from the karma. And it's kind of an intermediate stage there, karma yoga, which is discussed in earlier chapters, like chapter 3, karma yoga. And then Sankhya yoga. But beyond all of that is Hare Krishna, bhakti yoga. But to achieve that platform, they have to become free from the influences of the modes of nature. Even while acting in the material world. It's I remember hearing about, when a coconut's ripe, you got the husk, and then there's the coconut. Well, when the coconut's ripe, if you shake it, you can hear it rattling around in there. So it's still a coconut, it's still in a husk, but it's not attached, it's rattling around in there. Sometimes when I shake my head, I hear a little rattling. Text 21. Arjuna inquired, "Oh, my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature?" Boy, what great questions, huh? Yeah. What are the symptoms of someone who is transcendental to the modes? How does he act? How does he transcend the modes of nature? Prabhupada's purport: in this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives, what his activities are. Are they regulated? Are they non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That's very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always, transcendentally, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So, all these qualities put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always, transcendentally, there's no possibility of showing the symptoms. So these are verses 22 through 25. It's a very long purport. I think I'm going to, next time I read, I'll read that. It's kind of like, leaves you hanging, doesn't it? Arjuna asks Krishna these questions, and then we don't get to hear the answers right now. Hare Krishna, something to look forward to. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.